My sister promised she would always protect me, so I never expected the betrayal to come from the same hands that once held mine. My best friend was my sister, Clara. She had always promised to be there for me, to support me no matter what. I never imagined that promise would turn into the knife that would tear through everything I trusted. It started innocently enough. I was standing in the kitchen, holding a casserole dish fresh out of the oven, when my husband, Oliver's phone lit up with a text notification. It sat there on the counter between us, a glowing reminder of everything I had no idea was about to fall apart. Oliver was in the shower, humming to himself, completely unaware of the bomb that was ticking away in the next room. I set the casserole down on the counter, my hands trembling. There it was, the text from Clara. He actually thought you'd believe him, huh? It hit like a punch to the gut. My husband's phone. My sister's text. I picked it up instinctively, my fingerprint still registered from when I added it months ago for emergencies. As I scrolled through the messages, my mind couldn't process what I was seeing. Dozens of texts from Clara and Oliver, laughing about how easily they'd fooled me, discussing their secret meetups while I was supposedly working late. And there it was, a photo that made my stomach turn, a picture of Clara's bedroom, the same room I'd helped her decorate last summer, with Oliver's watch on her nightstand, the very one I had given him for our anniversary. My mind raced. I forwarded every single one of those messages to my phone. Clara had always been there for me, my rock. She was my confidant, my partner in everything. She held my hand through our mother's funeral, helped me pick out my wedding dress, and stood by me as I married Oliver. And now, the two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me. Oliver came downstairs, fresh out of the shower, wearing that easy smile I had fallen in love with 6 years ago. He kissed me on the forehead. "Dinner smells great," he said, completely oblivious. I stared at him. This man who I had vowed to spend my life with. The man who had promised to love me forever. He was the man who had kissed my sister. "I'm fine," I heard myself say, the words feeling like they came from someone else. "Work's just been stressful." He didn't question it. He kissed me again, sitting down to dinner like everything was fine. But nothing was fine. Every bite of the pot roast felt like a betrayal, a slow burn. Later, as he went to bed, I sat alone in the dark living room, planning. Divorce was an option. The house was in both of our names, but I had used my inheritance for the down payment. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Oliver and Clara were not only betraying me emotionally, they were setting me up for financial ruin. I couldn't just leave it at that. I knew how they worked. I had seen how manipulative Oliver could be. I had to protect myself. I opened my laptop and began digging. If they had been careless enough to leave their messages open on his phone, surely there were other things they had overlooked. I logged into our shared cloud storage, looking for anything that could help me. I found it. A folder buried deep in his files, labeled Tax Documents 2024. Inside were the emails, the ones where Oliver and Clara discussed how to handle me once their affair came to light. There were also discussions about using my inheritance to start a new business together, with Clara suggesting ways to make me look unstable if I ever contested anything. They weren't just cheating on me. They were plotting to take everything I had, to destroy me financially while they built a life on my back. And Clara had been complicit in everything. My phone buzzed. Clara, of course. "Coffee tomorrow?" She texted. "Miss you, sis." I looked at Oliver's phone again, at the glowing screen, at our wedding picture on the mantel, and I realized something. This was no longer about betrayal. This was about survival. I set the phone back down on the counter. Drew had no idea what was coming. The weight of the evidence I had just uncovered was like a storm cloud gathering above my head. Tomorrow, I had appointments to make sure everything would be handled. Divorce. FBI. Evidence. The truth was about to be revealed. And I wasn't going to be the one who got destroyed by their lies. By dawn, I had changed the names in my notes, not to soften the truth, but to keep my head clear. In my file, my wife became Lennox. My brother became Quincy. My late father became the quiet ache I still carried into every decision. And my mom, the one who always excused Quincy, became the voice in my memory that kept asking me to be the bigger person. I showered, but the water didn't touch the feeling that my home had turned into evidence. The tiles, the mirrors, the clean towels, everything looked normal. That was the cruelest part. Betrayal doesn't announce itself with smoke. It sits on your counter like a phone you didn't ask to see light up. At 6 a.m., Lennox's alarm went off upstairs. I heard her footsteps, the familiar sounds of someone getting ready for a day that wasn't real. She came down in the navy suit I'd once said made her look confident. She kissed my cheek like we were still a team. "Morning," she said. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." That was the only honest thing I'd said in hours. She poured coffee, scrolling through her phone with that casual focus people have when they believe their secrets are safe. I've got meetings all day, she added, grabbing her travel mug. Don't wait up. I forced my voice to stay light. Where are your meetings? Downtown. Morrison account is being difficult. The Morrison account had closed months ago. I'd seen the email trail the night before, buried in the same folder where they talked about my inheritance like it was a prize waiting to be claimed. Lennox smiled as she lied, like lying was just another habit, like brushing teeth. Have a good day, I said. She paused at the door, studying my face for half a second. You sure you're okay? You seem off. Just tired. Go. You'll be late. She left. The door clicked shut. And in that moment, I didn't feel dramatic. I felt awake. Like I'd been underwater for years and finally broke the surface, lungs burning, eyes stinging, but alive. At 7:30, Quincy called. My phone vibrated with his name, and my stomach reacted like it remembered every time I had trusted him. Hey, he said, warm and practiced. Still on for coffee? It was almost impressive, how cleanly he could sound like my safe place while actively dismantling my life. Actually, something came up at work, I said. Rain check. Oh no. Everything okay? The concern was perfect. I understood then that concern can be performance, too. That love can be rehearsed until it sounds real even when it isn't. Everything's fine, I lied back. Just busy. Okay, Quincy said softly. Love you. Love you too. The words tasted like metal. When I hung up, I stood in my kitchen and let myself feel it for the first time, the grief. Not just for my marriage, but for the version of my life where my own family was my shelter. I leaned against the counter and cried until my chest hurt. Not loud, not theatrical, just the kind of crying that empties you out and leaves you staring at nothing, wondering how you ever thought you were safe. By 9 a.m., I was in Patricia Moreno's office. Patricia was the kind of attorney who didn't waste comfort on lies. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, steady hands, a suit that looked like it had never known doubt. She listened while I showed her screenshots, email threads, the photo that made my vision blur, the file where Lennox and Quincy discussed, handling me, how to make me look unstable, how to make sure I wouldn't be believed. Patricia didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She didn't tell me to follow my heart. This is strong, she said when I finished. Very strong. I swallowed. Divorce will split everything. Not necessarily. She tapped the folder with one finger. You used your inheritance for the down payment. And these emails suggest intent, planning, deception, and a strategy to paint you as unreliable. That matters. Judges care about fraud. They care about paper trails. I stared at the table, trying to keep my hands from shaking. They're going to say I'm vindictive. They will, Patricia said plainly. Your brother will cry. Your wife will pretend she was trapped in a failing marriage. They'll make you the villain because it's the last tool they have. So you do one thing, you stay calm, you stay consistent, and you don't tip your hand until we're ready. I exhaled, slow. What do I do right now? Nothing visible, she said. Let them believe you're still confused. That's what they've counted on. It can work for you. At 1 p.m. I sat in a windowless room at the FBI field office across from Agent Chen and another agent, Rodriguez. The air smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet, like a place built for long days and hard truths. Chen didn't look like television. No swagger. Just tired eyes and a calm voice. Show us what you have, he said. I opened my laptop and let the evidence speak, emails between Lennox and a partner named Garrett about moving client funds, Quincy's signatures on falsified invoices, transfers into offshore accounts. Messages that weren't just careless, but confident, like they believed the world belonged to people who knew how to lie well. Rodriguez leaned in, quiet but sharp. Your brother works in accounting? Office manager, I said. Lennox hired him. Chen and Rodriguez exchanged a look that said pattern. This becomes an active investigation, Chen said carefully. We'll need you to keep your routine. Don't confront them. Don't warn them. Can you do that? My throat tightened. How long? Could be weeks, Chen admitted. We need an airtight case. I nodded, even though my body wanted to do the opposite, wanted to run home and burn the whole house down to the studs just to remove the memory of them from the walls. That afternoon, I went home and checked the security cameras I'd installed a month earlier when Lennox's late night started feeling like a fog I couldn't see through. The footage loaded. Quincy let himself in with the spare key I'd given him for emergencies. They didn't even hesitate. They moved through my house like it belonged to them. Like I was already gone. I saw Quincy in my bathrobe. I saw Lennox in my bedroom. I saw the casual cruelty of two people who didn't even need to hide anymore because they'd convinced themselves I would never do anything. I turned the monitor off before I could break something. That night, Lennox came home at 8, carrying the scent of someone else's air. She smiled like she'd earned it. Sorry, she said. Meetings ran late. It's okay, I replied. I made spaghetti. We ate in front of the TV, her hand occasionally squeezing mine like she was reminding herself what role she needed to play. I watched her check her phone under the table and felt something settle inside me, cold, steady, and unshakable. Later, she said casually, Quincy and I have to go to a conference next weekend. Miami. Company thing. What conference? I asked. Sales strategies. Mandatory. Another lie. I already knew there was no conference. And somehow, that lie hurt more than the others, not because it was bigger, but because it was so easy for her. She wasn't even straining. Sure, I said. I might visit my college friend Ainsley. Lennox nodded, satisfied, as if we were discussing weather. When she finally went upstairs, I stayed on the couch, staring at the dark TV screen. I thought about the version of me from 2 weeks ago, the one who would have blamed herself, the one who would have begged for clarity, the one who would have tried to fix what someone else broke. That person was gone. In his place was someone who understood a simple rule: when people are willing to ruin you, you don't owe them a soft landing. And the next time Quincy texted, "Miss you," I didn't feel love or hate. I felt patience. Because the truth was already moving. Quietly. Officially. And soon, it would be loud enough that nobody could talk over it. The waiting was the hardest part. Not the fear. Not the anger. The waiting. Every day after that became a performance. I woke up beside Lennox, smiled at the right moments, asked neutral questions, listened to stories that were half-truths stacked on top of lies. I learned how exhausting deception really is, not for the liar, but for the person forced to live inside it. She played her role well. So did Quincy. He stopped by the house twice that week, unannounced, like he used to when we were close. He brought pastries once. Another time, he brought flowers and said they were, just because. He hugged me longer than necessary, told me I looked tired, told me I needed to take better care of myself. It was almost impressive how smoothly concern could be weaponized. You've always been the strong one, he said one afternoon, standing in my kitchen like he belonged there. You take on too much. I smiled and nodded, the same way I had my entire life. The reliable one. The reasonable one. The one who didn't cause problems. The one they thought would never push back. Behind the scenes, everything was moving. Agent Chen checked in every few days with short, careful updates. Warrants were being prepared. Accounts were being traced. Money paths were lighting up like veins under a scan. Offshore transfers. Shell entities. Forged approvals. Quincy wasn't a side character, he was central. The documents didn't lie, even when people did. Patricia filed the divorce papers but held them. Timing mattered. If Lennox sensed danger too early, she might run. Or worse, destroy evidence. So I stayed quiet. I went to work. I answered emails. I laughed at jokes I didn't hear. I even went to dinner with Lennox's co-workers one Friday night and listened while she bragged about how lucky she was to have such a supportive spouse. That night, she reached for my hand in the car. I know things have felt off, she said softly. But I want you to know, you're my person. Always. I watched the road slide past the windshield and wondered how long she'd practiced saying that without flinching. 2 weeks later, Quincy invited me to lunch. I miss you, he said over the phone. We haven't really talked. I agreed. Not because I wanted to see him, but because I wanted to understand something. I needed to see if there was anything left of the brother I grew up with, or if he'd always been this person and I just refused to see it. We met at a quiet cafe near his office. He looked thinner. Tired. When he smiled, it didn't quite reach his eyes. You've been distant, he said, stirring his coffee. Did I do something? The audacity almost took my breath away. No, I said calmly. I've just been busy. He nodded, relieved. You've always been driven. Responsible. I admire that about you. There it was again. The compliment that doubled as a cage. He leaned forward. Listen, if Lennox and you are ever struggling, you know you can tell me. I'd never let anything happen to you. I studied his face. The familiar shape. The eyes that used to look at me with loyalty. And I understood something with painful clarity. He didn't think he was betraying me. He thought he was smarter than me. That realization settled everything. The call from Agent Chen came on a Tuesday morning. "We're moving tomorrow," he said. "Arrests at 10 a.m. All involved parties." I sat down slowly. "Both of them?" "Yes. Your wife. Your brother. And the business partner." I didn't feel relief. I felt exhaustion. Like I'd been holding my breath for months and my body didn't remember how to exhale. "Do I need to do anything?" I asked. "No," Chen said. "Just stay where you are." That night, I cooked Lennox's favorite meal. Not out of love, out of closure. Steak, potatoes, the works. She seemed almost surprised. "What's the occasion?" she asked. "No occasion," I said. "Just felt like it." She smiled, touched my hand, told me she loved me. I let the words pass through me without landing. At 10:03 the next morning, my phone started vibrating. Lennox. Quincy. An unknown number. Then my father. I didn't answer. By noon, the news broke. Federal agents had arrested multiple executives at Lennox's company on charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. A trusted accounting manager, my brother, was named as a key participant. Hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen. Offshore accounts. Forged documents. Lennox left a voicemail, her voice shaking. "There's been a mistake. I need you. Please. Call my lawyer. I didn't do anything wrong." Quincy's message followed. "I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening. You have to help me." They were still performing. Still reaching for the version of me they thought existed. Patricia sat across from me in her office, hands folded. "Do not respond," she said. "Not to either of them." I nodded. The next weeks passed in a blur of hearings, filings, and quiet devastation. The house felt hollow. I stayed in a hotel until Patricia arranged temporary orders giving me sole access. My father finally got through. "What did you do?" he demanded. "Your brother is in jail." "What did they do?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "Quincy told me things weren't good between you and Lennox." He said. "I know what he said," I interrupted. "He's been telling you stories about me my entire life. You just never questioned them." Silence. "You always chose him," I continued. "This is where that choice leads." He didn't argue. He didn't apologize. I ended the call. The preliminary hearing came 3 weeks later. I attended. I wanted to see them when the truth stopped being abstract. Lennox looked smaller. Quincy looked lost. The prosecutor laid out the evidence piece by piece, methodical and merciless. Emails. Transfers. Recorded calls. Laughing about clients. Planning how to use my inheritance like it was already theirs. I sat perfectly still. They didn't look at me. The judge denied bail. Outside the courtroom, Lennox's father tried to speak to me. I walked past him. Quincy's attorney avoided my eyes. No one asked how I was. That was fine. I didn't need their concern anymore. The divorce finalized quietly. No dramatic courtroom battle. The fraud changed everything. The house was awarded to me. My inheritance was protected. Lennox's share went toward restitution for her victims. Justice, when it comes, is rarely loud. It just removes what never belonged to someone in the first place. By the time sentencing dates were set, I no longer woke up expecting apologies. I no longer replayed conversations. I stopped wondering why. Because the answer was simple. They didn't betray me by accident. They betrayed me because they thought I would let them. And I didn't. The next time I walked into my home alone, the silence felt different. Not empty. Clean. Sentencing came months later, on a gray morning that matched how I felt inside, muted, steady, no storms left to burn through me. By then, the shock had worn off. The anger had cooled. What remained was something quieter and heavier, understanding. I arrived early and sat near the back of the courtroom. Not out of fear, and not out of shame. I simply didn't need to be seen. This wasn't about me anymore. Lennox entered first, wearing a plain jumpsuit, her hair pulled back without care. She didn't scan the room. She didn't look for me. The woman who once needed attention the way others needed oxygen now stared at the floor like it might open and swallow her. Quincy came in next. He looked older than his years, shoulders slumped, confidence gone. For a brief second, his eyes lifted and found mine. There was no hatred in them. Just confusion. That was when it finally hit me, he still didn't understand. Even now, after everything, he believed this had happened to him. Not because of him. The judge reviewed the charges with clinical precision. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. Money laundering. Abuse of trust. The words stacked neatly, one after another, like stones building a wall that could never be climbed. Victim impact statements followed. Clients who had lost retirement funds. Small business owners whose accounts had been drained. One woman spoke about postponing medical treatment because her savings were gone. Another man said he trusted Lennox because she looked him in the eye and promised stability. I listened to all of it. Not because I needed closure, but because this was the part they never thought about. They had been so focused on what they could take from me that they forgot everyone else existed. When it was time for sentencing, Lennox's attorney argued remorse. Growth. Poor judgment under pressure. Quincy's attorney spoke about loyalty gone wrong, about family influence, about following instead of leading. The judge listened. Then she spoke. The court is not persuaded by narratives of confusion, she said calmly. This was sustained, deliberate behavior. Planning. Execution. Concealment. She turned to Lennox first. 14 years. A sharp intake of breath echoed somewhere in the room. Then Quincy. 12 years. He closed his eyes. Not in grief, but in disbelief. I felt nothing dramatic. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just finality. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Reporters shouted questions. I kept my head down and walked past them, Patricia at my side. You okay? She asked quietly once we reached the car. Yes, I said, and realized it was true. In the weeks that followed, I sold the house. Not out of necessity, but intention. Walls remember things, even when people pretend they don't. I didn't want to live inside memories that no longer belonged to me. I moved into a smaller place across town. Sunlight in the mornings. Quiet at night. A space that was entirely mine. My father tried to reach out once more. A long email filled with regret and explanations that came too late to matter. I read it once, then archived it without replying. Forgiveness isn't something you owe someone because they finally feel uncomfortable. It's something you give when it doesn't cost you your peace. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how I'd learned to disappear inside relationships. How being easy and reliable had slowly turned into being invisible. My therapist said something that stayed with me. You weren't naive, she said. You were trained to prioritize harmony over truth. That sentence unlocked more than any courtroom verdict ever could. Months passed. Life simplified. I changed jobs. I traveled alone for the first time, just a small coastal town, nothing dramatic. I learned how silence could feel full instead of lonely. Occasionally, letters came. From Lennox at first. Pages filled with explanations, apologies, rewritten history. I didn't open them. From Quincy later. Shorter. Sadder. Asking if I'd visit. I didn't. Some endings don't need conversations. They need boundaries. One afternoon, nearly a year later, I was walking through a park when I saw a brother and sister sitting on a bench, laughing about something trivial. For a split second, grief surfaced, sharp and unexpected. Then it passed. Because I finally understood something I wish I'd known sooner. Family isn't defined by proximity, blood, or shared history. It's defined by behavior. By who protects you when it costs them something. By who tells the truth when lying would be easier. I went home that evening and made dinner for one. Opened the windows. Let the quiet settle. I wasn't lonely. I was free. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day.